Hello and welcome to Plod with Me TV. My name is Klem and this is the channel where you get to see different parts of London and I tell you a bit about their history. And today we're going to continue on with the third part of Fitzrovia. So this is the third part. We did parts 1 and 2 obviously, and I'm just going to pick up from where we left off. And if you watched to the end of number 2, you might remember the end, might remember seeing this building. So I'll just scroll up. There we go, so this was the place that was a nurse's home, but it's now the Langham Court Hotel. So we're going to make our way from here. Before I do that, can you see that under the awning there? It's obviously a teddy bear's picnic. That's the biggest bear I've seen in a long time. Okay, now, so we're going to go round this way. And we're going to go down past the Yorkshire Grey pub. And judging by the pub sign, I would imagine it's named after a breed of horse called the Yorkshire Grey. And we're going to go into Middleton Place. Now, apparently, I read somewhere that this is the oldest residential street, or pedestrianised residential street in the West End. I don't know if that's of any interest for you, but I'm just putting that out there just in case. So these were originally built in the 1750s. And then they got a bit run down and they were rebuilt in very much the same style, by all accounts, in the mid-1800s. So it's just a short little pedestrianised walkway. Well, it's a bit windy. I'm hoping my muffler is working okay on the microphone. Okay. So that brings us out into Riding House Street, just as the cleaning lorry is making its way around. I just thought I'd show you up the other end, because that is the church just right by where the BBC studios are, top end of Regent Street. So I'll go down Riding House Street. This might be a good time for a bit of music with all this noise going on. We are in Candover Street, and I just thought I'd show you these buildings. And it's a pity you can't see that one behind the scaffolding as clear as you normally would. It says Tower House because it has some lovely little features. Just try to get a bit closer. You know, architecturally speaking, it's got some nice little touches. and the other one is called York House. And why do I mention these? Well, apart from the fact they're just very pretty buildings, if I just scroll up for you, tilt up rather, there you go, you can see the whole thing. And this, in the early 1900s, was social housing. So a bit different from the concrete sort of blocks that they build these days. And yeah, got a lot more charm. Now, to have to be completely honest about this, it's still part of a social housing project. And I read an article about how whenever they went in, they had to do lots of renovations to it because most of them didn't have a sort of amenity for each flat, known as a bathroom and toilet. So obviously it was everybody sharing one, maybe on each floor previously, and they've since spent quite a bit of money on upgrading them to get them to the point where everybody has the privacy of their own bathroom. But as I say, in terms of just the look of it, I just think it's a lovely looking building. And in fact, if we wander around the corner, we can see, hold on, we can see what the building used to be used for around the other side. Because there's a sort of inconspicuous little sign that you can see. There you go. T.J. Bolting and Sons Gas and Electrical Engineers, established 1808. And then up above, T.J. Bolting and Sons Range and Stove Manufactory, established 1808. And then there's a big plaque underneath that says 1903. That must have been when it was taken over for the social housing. Now, as I mentioned before, and as you can see the sign there, we are in Riding House Street, which is a bit of an unusual name for a street, and it has a reason for it. And basically, this street that linked Titchfield Street with the street up there, in the 1700s, I believe, from 1726 to 1788, there was a troop of Grenadier Guards based here. There was a barracks with all the horses and everything else involved, and that's how it got the name Riding House Street. Now that low wall up there, that's a school. There's I guess a primary school in behind there. But here, obviously a much more modern building than it used to be. What it says, Olaudah Equiano, 1745 to 1797, in quotes, the African, lived and published here in 1789 his autobiography on suffering the barbarity of slavery, which paved the way for its abolition. And his book, if I remember it, was called The Interesting Narrative of the Life of Olaudah Equiano. So, catchy title, but obviously very influential in his day. I think I mentioned when we passed his other house that we passed in the first video. It had 9 editions very quickly. Sold out, then there was 9 editions in total. And he made a living going around the country doing lectures, talking about it. And he changed his name to Gustavus Vassus at one point. But these days is known by what was, I'm guessing, a given name originally. So this is where that happened, where he wrote his book. Now, we're going to go into this square. I'll show you a building. And if I just sort of show you, I take a step back, just show you how modern all this is. It will depend on whether I can get there's a brilliant picture on the internet that shows you that once this was being developed, it was just a big square wasteland with one building left in the middle. I'm not sure if it's got copyright. I'll have a look. And if not, you can have a look for it yourself. I'll have a look for a place called Fitzrovia Chapel and the sort of development of the area. Because basically they demolished the old Middlesex Hospital, demolished everything around the chapel, but the developers were given the rights to to demolish and redevelop all these places on the grounds that they basically kept and then revamped the original chapel that was attached to the hospital. And most recently, King Charles did his 2024 Christmas Day speech from here. Now there is this big sculpture, which I believe is called something like One of Many, and no doubt you'll be sitting on the internet telling you what it's about. The One and the Many, my mistake. Peter Randall Page, the One and the Many.co.uk. I believe it's sort of got some sort of either religious or philosophical saying in lots of different languages on the one piece of stone. So this is Fitzrovia Chapel, which is absolutely beautiful inside. Now, it's closed today. To be fair, it's not open too often. It's closed today, but I've got some footage because in the past, just in the last 6 months actually, it has held exhibitions regarding photographs of David Bowie, and then there was one relating to the history of nursing. Obviously, because it used to be the hospital's chapel. So I happened to be in a couple of times and got some photos and some footage, so I'll cut that in to the video. Alright. Now, oh, actually, going the wrong way. See, too busy talking, not looking where I'm going. So, we're going to go through this way. Alright, let's do some music. Right, we are back in Cleveland Street. Now, just up there is the workhouse. If you remember, the place that you could build or you could buy a place, it was a place in London with a twist. Oh, how we laughed, because on this building, I'll let this car get past. It says in this building, young Charles Dickens twice lived in this house, 1815 to 16 and 1828 to 31, a few doors down from the Cleveland Street workhouse. So as I said before, if you needed any inspiration for Oliver Twist, he wasn't living too far away. And while I was here, I just thought I would mention this place, which doesn't look like much. place is number 47 Tottenham Street. Now, as I say, it's been obviously redeveloped. Looks like it might have been knocked down and built from scratch, or possibly just had a radical overhaul. But if you remember, if any of you watched the first video, we discussed about how back in the late 1800s there was a lot of radicals from various countries, sort of who had sort of come to London and were planning to go back to their own countries and maybe overthrow the government and sort of develop new political philosophies. And obviously one of the main ones that we mentioned was sort of Lenin. Bumped into my microphone. So Lenin, Trotsky and Stalin were at the Russian Democratic Party headquarters that were around the corner. That was from the early 1900s. Late 1800s, it was based here, number 47. And Karl Marx used to come here, I suppose Engels and lots of others, and this is where they would have met up. You sort of, from the way you read about it, it feels like it was almost like a bit of a social club. And they would come here and debate and plan and plot and various other things. One other little note I should have mentioned about Lenin last time. Do you know what he used to do, I suppose, to make a bit of extra money and to sort of get to know his followers a bit better whenever he was here? He used to act as a tour guide for the new guys and take them around the area and get them sort of familiar with it. So tour guides, dodgy people, you never know what they're going to get up to. I'm just saying. Now, we're going to continue down Cleveland Street, but not very far in terms of where the next point is. Okay, so the first place is here, number 20. Now, you see, I wasn't even going to mention this, but just, since it's there, you see the blocked out windows? That will be from the time, I think it was the late 1700s, you had a window tax. So if you had more than a certain amount of windows, you had to pay a window tax. So there's lots of houses like this around London where they basically decided to avoid it by just blocking up some of the windows in the place. But anyway, number 20. There's a whole story related to this place, so bear with me. It's a conspiracy theory. We're going into Jack the Ripper territory. So, basically, brain's gone dead. Hold on. Yeah, okay. So, essentially, late 1800s, Queen Victoria's favourite son, the one who was going to be king. So we obviously ended up with Edward VII after Queen Victoria, but originally it was going to be a guy called Albert Victor. And he died tragically young due to, I think it was tuberculosis. But he was very popular among the people and sort of expected to be the king. But anyway, early on, his father obviously decided to let him get a chance to taste what life was like for the little people like you and me. And so he was apprenticed in secret to a famous artist who lived here, number 20, called Walter Sickert. So he's working as his apprentice on the quiet just to get an idea what everyday life is like. And he then falls for a young girl that worked nearby called Annie Cook. She wasn't in an aristocracy or anything. She was, just worked in a sort of, I think it was a fairly menial job in the nearby area. But him and her apparently fell for each other, got married in secret. She had a baby. This would have, been the next in line after him to be the monarch. And obviously this did not go down too well with the powers that be. who decided to put an end to this. So, the theory goes that Annie was put into a mental asylum. Now that I believe, I've seen a documentary that all happened just to get her out of the way, to put her into a mental home. So a woman ended up spending the rest of her days there, being totally forgotten about. But the baby, and this is where the conspiracy theory comes in, was given to some friends of hers, one of whom had to be looked after in secret. One of whom was Mary Jane Kelly, who was the final Ripper victim. And so the idea being that they basically, she knew where the baby was, the next in line, and she was murdered to try and find out where it was, because they wanted to basically get rid of everybody associated with this. And so we have the Jack the Ripper conspiracy theory that perhaps even Prince Eddie himself was Jack the Ripper. There's a very good movie, at least I think it's a good one. It's a Sherlock Holmes movie where Sherlock Holmes tries to solve the Ripper case. It's got Christopher Plummer in it, and it involves this theory. All right, so then we come down to the next place, next door. Now, this is now called number 19. They've changed the number since the events that took place. I think it used to be number 18, but basically it was in this building. So another scandal, which which Prince Eddie ended up being named in. So a young postboy who works as a messenger up in St Martin le Grand, up by St Paul's, where the head post office was. He was working in there. He got found with some extra money that he shouldn't have had, was accused of stealing, and then he said, well, actually, no, I got this money for providing sexual services to some important men, which led to a big investigation. Where did this happen? Turned out it was in this house. This was a brothel, obviously a homosexual brothel, and it ended up with a big scandal involving the Earl of Euston and some, several lords, all the rest of it, and Prince Eddie's name was apparently also mentioned as part of that. Before the scandal really broke and it took off, Eddie suddenly was sent off on a sort of goodwill ambassadorial tour of India, where he stayed until the whole scandal sort of ended. Now, in his defence, apparently a lot of historians since have looked into both these incidents and can find no evidence of him being involved in either one of these big scandals. So that's just, the sort of the other half of the picture. But so homosexual scandal, brothels, and possible Jack the Ripper conspiracy theory next door to each other here in Cleveland Street. So there you go. And strangely enough, no plaques to either of them. So this is the Sanderson Hotel, which always reminds me of, when I grew up I used to watch programs like The Champions and stuff, and we'd have done like an outside building shot of where their head office was, and so it reminds me of that sort of look. But these days, even though this looks like it's very much 60s or maybe 70s, apparently this is a 5-star hotel, so obviously a bit nice. But, so why are we here? Basically, because this was the location of probably the best, the best practical joke ever played in London. Now, I'm so busy writing down all the details of what he arranged, I forgot to write down when it happened. Oh no, tell a lie, 1810, but I forgot to write down who it was that, so I'll put that in the text above. But bear with me, I could never remember all this. So, essentially, number 54, which is where this is, a woman wakes up early in the morning and finds a load of kids, shouting to her that she wanted a sweep and, to get her chimneys done, and she sent them away. No sooner has she done that, then what happens next is a bunch of wagons with coal, loads of coal turn up with a delivery. Swiftly followed by 12 men with wedding cakes, then a load of bootmakers, then a load of upholsterers, then there was a bunch of carts complete with barrels of beer, and then there was undertakers and coffins. So this is happening, every 15 minutes, every half hour. All these people are turning up. And then 12 wedding carriages turn up. And by this time, there is a huge crowd gathering. And this is where I wrote down who did it. It was a guy called Theodore Hook, who apparently was a famous practical joker in London in the early 1800s. This was followed up, so after we had the wedding carriages, this was followed up with a bunch of doctors who were there to do an amputation. There was lawyers with deeds for God knows what, and there were portrait artists. Then a bunch of clergymen turned up to see to someone who had a weak mind. By 12 p.m. there were 40 fishmongers, complete with loads of cod and lobsters. There were butchers with legs of mutton, followed by dentists, chemists, midwives, deliveries of sacks and sacks of potatoes, feathers, furniture, wigs, a piano, and 6 men with an organ. And then the Lord Mayor turns up in the state carriage. The chairman of one of the biggest businesses in London, the East India Company, the governor of the Bank of England, and then a bit of royalty to top it off in the form of the Duke of Gloucester. And why was all this done? It was all done for a wager of 1 guinea. And the guy, Theodore Hook, who organised it all, he sent over 1,000 letters in the months preceding it to organise this big event. And apparently just for a laugh. For any of you that have ever seen the 80s movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy, this reminded me of that, because that was a wager of $1. But yeah, so quite a stunt. And apparently some people have tried, doing similar things since, but nobody's ever come close. So there you go. That is the biggest practical joke in London. Now we're going to wander down just a bit further. Oh, come on, you know you want to. There we go. Wow, the sun's coming out. What's happening? I haven't seen that for a long time. Okay, I'm just going to hang back here because obviously very much people walking about. But that next junction, this street to the left and right here, this is Eastcastle Street. Okay, right. This is Eastcastle Street. This was the scene of the biggest robbery for quite some years after World War II. So early hours in the morning, 21st of May, 1952. And hold on, may as well look at me for the moment. Come on, spin around, there we go. Yeah, so the early hours in the morning, big robbery. 9 men involved, months in the planning, stole £287,000. So this was huge. Basically what they had done is they had spent months planning this. The details of the robbery weren't released to any of them until literally the night before, even though the guy planning it had done it all, a guy called Hill, I think it was Billy Hill. And they had pretended to be making a movie, or a gangster movie, complete with guns and all the rest of it in the street. Pretended to be filming a movie, and then whenever the van came along with all the money, suddenly it turned out the guns were real, and they robbed the van. And apparently they had disabled the alarm on the van earlier that night. Whenever the guys, the security guards were having a cup of tea, somebody went in and disabled the alarm. So they got away, as I say, with 287 grand. It was a big scandal at the time. Churchill was absolutely fuming, the Prime Minister at the time. Wanted these guys caught, made a lesson of. And there was over 1,000 people put on the case, policemen and various other things, all put on the case to find out who done it, and they never got one of them. So they got scot-free with the money. And in fact, the gang leader who organised it all, he sent £14,000 to one of his peers in the gangland world as a little sort of nod to the head that it had been him that had pulled it off. So, if any of you are fans of the Olaudah Equiano movie, The Lady Killers, there's a point in the movie when they think they're going to get caught because they've robbed the bank, and they're wondering if they can pin the robbery on the little old lamp lady that they've got. And at one point, one of them says, "Yeah, we'll tell the police that she organised the Eastcastle Street Job." So, yeah, that's where the big robbery took place. It was probably, in terms of publicity, the biggest one until the Great Train robbery about 15 years later. So, that is today's walk, the final bit of Fitzrovia. I can't think of anything else in the area that you'd want to know about. So that is the third part done. That's Fitzrovia covered as far as I can think, unless something else occurs to me at a later date. So if you got this far, thanks for watching. If you like this sort of stuff, feel free to subscribe down below, and hopefully I'll see you on the next walk. But that's us for now. Thanks for watching.